Maria was wholly in love with her husband. She loved being a wife.
Ha, bye.
Her goal was to marry the love of her life and never have to divorce ever.
Maria wanted the completion of her family, but Joel was nowhere to be seen.
Joel was narcissistic and was kind of domineering.
You walk out that door, we're getting away.
He wanted both women, and the only way to get that was to string both of them along. Maria was born in 1989, and she grew up in Puerto Rico. Her early life was a happy childhood, beautiful as a little girl, enjoyed her high school years. Lots of freckles as she got older.
Maria's parents divorced when she was a little bit younger, and it was definitely difficult for her.
She was sort of devastated, and that was kind of her goal, is to marry the love of her life and never have to divorce ever.
Maria was going to nursing school in Puerto Rico when she met Joel.
She fell in love, of course, and kind of got swept off her feet. She saw a life and a future with Joel.
She was enamored because he gave her so much attention. Her sister and her father had some cautions because of his age. He was 10 years older than her, but Maria saw someone who had set goals and dreams, and he sold those dreams to her.
Maria and Joel were married back in 2010. It was a beautiful occasion. Maria looked beautiful.
Maria and Joel had goals to come to the mainland.
Joel was training to become a CRNA, which is a certified registered nurse anesthetist.
You're not trained as a doctor, it's not as much schooling, but the pay is very high. Maria and Joel were excited to welcome their first son into the world. He was a beautiful little boy.
That was something that Maria was over the moon about. Her calling was to be a mother.
Joel had a very good paying job, and that enabled Maria to be able to stay at home, which she enjoyed devoting her time to her firstborn son. Maria and I first met at a ladies' night. There was a woman on our church that hosted a ladies' bowling night. So we met at one of those arcades. She looked at me and she said, "So you're the pastor's wife?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am." And she said, "So tell me about God." We became friends right away, and we just never looked back.
I'm like freaking out here.
When I first met Maria, I thought she was incredibly bubbly. She was very happy, very animated, incredibly warm and friendly. You could tell she was wholly in love with her husband, loved her little family. She was devoted. She loved being a wife.
Maria and Joel seemed to be in a loving marriage. You could have fun with them. Joel appeared to be a supportive and proud dad and engaged dad. 2017, Maria had gotten pregnant, and very shortly after, she had had a miscarriage. And this was really difficult for Maria.
Joel didn't really understand what happened, and thought somehow that the miscarriage was her fault. And that didn't help her state of mind. Maria was so excited to be pregnant again, just a short time after her miscarriage. You could just see a glow about her while she was pregnant.
Maria had her second son in 2018, and, she was ecstatic.
Joelle seemed excited, but this is a time where she started to feel some distance. He started to be more secretive, and that sort of made her nervous that maybe she was doing something wrong.
At this point in Maria's life, what she wanted was to feel the completion of her family, but Joelle was nowhere to be seen. Joelle had a 5-year goal that he obsessively spoke about, and so he devoted himself to work, took overtime whenever he could.
Maria talked about a lot of the changes going on in Joelle's life. She kept saying that he's so different now that they moved to Laredo. He started bulking up so fast that it seemed abnormal to me. Both of us suspected there was some supplements going on, probably a lot of testosterone.
At this point, Joelle's priorities appeared incredibly vain to me and short-sighted. His goals were money and his figure, his body.
In January of 2019, Joelle asked for a break from their marriage. He just was not happy with the way things were going. And so he decided he was just going to move out and stay with a friend. And that was a really hard time for her. But she would often tell me that she had 10 good years of marriage and she didn't want to throw it away, all because of this 1 year where he's just acting insane.
Her goal was always for her family to stay together no matter what, because the divorce between her parents had been so devastating.
I want to support him, be his rock, because I know he needs it.
Maria liked to keep a journal. When Joelle started being more distant, it really helped her to get her thoughts on paper.
How can I support someone who's always making me small? A piece of nothing, not enough.
At the point that Maria and Joelle were separated, he would come home to spend a little bit of time, not just with her, but with the boys.
He would expect her to still wash his clothes, and he would convince her that they needed to have sex to continue to protect the marriage. I told her that it's not your job to do his laundry, and it's definitely not your job to be intimate with him while he's breaking up the marriage. In March of 2019, Maria was doing his laundry. She found a plane ticket. She never even knew he went to Spain. She just knew in her heart that something was terribly wrong and he had not been honest at all during this whole time. Maria finally worked up the courage to confront Joelle about this plane ticket.
Joelle admitted to having an affair. She was a nurse at one of the hospitals that he was working at.
Her name was Janet Arredondo, and he had taken her on a trip to Spain. Maria was devastated, But at the same time, I think she expected this answer.
At this point, Joel broke down. He told Maria that he wanted to keep his family. He wanted to be with her. He would break up with the girlfriend. True to Maria, she gave Joel another chance. She would do anything to get her family back.
It seemed like such a back and forth during that time that Joel would tell her one weekend that he stopped the affair, and then a couple days later he would change his tune and walk back out. He wanted both women, and so the only way to get that was to string both of them along. And that was really just almost too much for her to bear.
My experience with Joel was that he was emotionally abusive. Joel was confident, what I perceived as narcissistic, and he was kind of domineering. He was like a dominant authority in the household.
One day, I was with Maria at the coffee shop, and Joel agreed to meet her there. When we were in line, there was a guy that sort of hit on her. Joel was extremely agitated, angry, and vividly upset that someone had hit on his wife. When he started to get angry with her, I told him that he had no right to tell her that she was wearing the wrong thing or that she invited the attention when he was having an affair with another woman. I am a bolder personality than Maria was, and he started to get nervous of the influence that me and her other friends had on her, that she might become bold one day. He started to discourage her from seeing me.
Maria loved Jesus so much, and she didn't want to break up her family for fear of God. What I told her was that biblically, he had gotten to the point where she had every right to leave the marriage.
That on me.
What are you talking about?
There was a argument that they had in the car at one point, and Maria recorded it unbeknownst to Joel.
Because it feels like you're like, okay, look, if I stay in the house, I'm gonna be frustrated. Mm-hmm. Frustration led me to be unfaithful to you in the past.
Maybe.
No, it led me.
Maybe.
You said it
because I think.
Okay.
That so possibly.
Okay.
Maria was talking to Joel about his unfaithfulness.
What do you have to say?
Nothing.
So what do you want me to do with that?
With what?
With nothing.
I don't know. It's up to you.
No, Papa. You walk out that door, we're getting a divorce.
All right, fine. You got it.
I have to realize that Joel that I knew and fell in love with isn't the Joel I am dealing with. I love him, but I don't need to accept none of this.
In the summer of 2020, Maria was beginning to see that there might not be a future with Joel.
Maria finally realized that Joel was not getting better. He wasn't getting rid of his affair, and he wasn't going to stop the lying and the dishonesty. And I think she finally started to picture a life without him. She wanted to be independent. Maria had the goal of becoming a nurse in Texas. She needed to pass her nursing exam to get her degree.
she was making plans to be able to provide for the children on her own.
Take 1,000.
She had hobbies and things she enjoyed doing.
I have been wanting to do a YouTube channel for quite a while.
She was doing hair and makeup tutorials.
I would probably grab like a little bit by little. Maybe that could help you, Gabby.
She was so beautiful in the way that she would play around with her makeup.
Whew, I like it. Just makes you look more awake. There's nothing like a good mascara and a good bronzer to make you feel good, right?
In September of 2020, Maria found Joel's phone and was able to access a bunch of messages between him and Janet. Really just showed her that he was in a full-blown affair and they were having sex.
That was the moment that she saw it with her own eyes, and that her very, very determined spirit came out.
Maria confronted Joel, and I think Joel started to see a different Maria. She was saying, hey, I'm done, and I'm not gonna listen to your lies anymore. So he told her, I'm gonna stop seeing Janet for real this time. We're gonna move to Dallas, and that will prove to you that I'm willing to put her away. Maria was skeptical, but at the same time, he had never offered to move away from his girlfriend before. Part of her wanted to believe that it could be true. Maria was very excited to tell me about how their marriage was going to turn around, and so we agreed to meet. However, before she came to my house, she gave me a phone call and said that she was going to be late. And she said, I called Joel and I heard a dog barking in the background, and I think it was Janet's. I think he lied to me again. I'm going to stop by the house and just make sure. I told her that I didn't think it was wise for her to stop over there, that nothing good was going to come from it, but she said she just couldn't help herself. She had to. When Maria arrived at Janet's house, she saw that his car was there. She got out of the car and decided to confront them both. When Maria arrived at Janet's house and saw that Joel's car was there, she was very angry. She had just been played again. Janet used the Ring app to kind of talk to her and say that she needed to leave right away or she would call the police.
Maria was incredibly upset and wasn't going to go anywhere until she had spoken to her husband. When Joel finally emerges, he tells Maria that he's chosen Janet, and I can't even imagine what was going through her head when hours earlier he had been telling a different story.
Joel told Maria to go get in the car and that they would drive to the park and they would just hash it out. When Maria and Joel were at the park, he got so angry that he smashed her windshield with his fist, and it just shattered. Meanwhile, Janet called the police. The police responded fairly quickly.
Hello, ma'am. Did you call police?
Yes, I did.
What's going on? You're gonna get up. What happened?
I had a woman come by that she was already told not to be here, so I had already filed a
Trespass warning?
yes.
Okay.
She was here, she was asked to leave, she refused, so I called you guys.
Let me make a phone call then, and hopefully she'll answer. If not, well, that's the only way I can warn her. guess that's your boyfriend.
They called Maria, and Joel, you can hear him screaming. He couldn't believe she answered the phone while they were talking.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
I'm gonna try one more time.
Janet started texting Joel to be quiet, to let him know it was the police calling.
Hello?
Hello, yes, sir. I'm looking for Maria Munoz.
Yeah, she's here. I'm having a conversation with her.
All right, this is Officer Jalomo, Laredo PD, sir.
Yeah,
I'm calling on behalf of Janela Redondo. Can I speak to her?
sure.
Thank you.
After receiving the text from Janet, Joel knew it was going to be the police, and instantly he was a calm, collected person.
Hello.
Yes, Miss Munoz. Man, this is Officer Jalomo, Laredo PD.
Yes.
Okay, I understand you came over to Ms. Redondo's house earlier today. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to not return. If not, you will be placed into custody.
Okay.
After the police hung up with her, Maria drove over to my house. She was very upset. She was almost hysterical. She told me that she was finally ready to move on, for real this time. No more getting lied to. I saw her the next day at church, and even though she was sad, she was determined that this was the thing that she had to do. Later that day, she sent him a text and let him know she was not going to go after him anymore. She let him know that for them to be legally separated, an attorney needed to be involved in that.
Joel's response was that he didn't want any lawyers involved. His concern lied in finances. He really didn't want Maria to go through with it because that would cost him.
He had responded initially on Sunday, but then on Monday, he had a different response, and he sent it through email. Again, he gave implication that there was hope for their marriage. I didn't believe any of it. And yet somehow I could not convince her to say no to this meeting. They agreed to meet around 7, and I told her to contact me as soon as he arrived, as soon as he left. She agreed to do that. I believe it was 9:30 when I had not heard from her. He showed up already much, much later than he was supposed to. He should have been gone by then. I started to pray that the conversation would go well.
There, 911, what's the address of emergency?
So, I called my wife on her responses, and kind of scared if she's not breathing.
There, 911, what's the address of emergency?
So, I called my wife on her responses, and kind of scared if she's not breathing. She may have taken some pills.
Okay, sir, and do you know what kind of pills they were?
Yeah, Glenn has a pen.
On September 22nd, 2020, the Laredo Police Department received a 911 call for unresponsive female. I was the first officer on scene. So as I approached the house, I see a male subject at the doorway.
What's going on?
He just turns around and bolts right into the residence.
What's going on?
So I followed quickly behind him.
What's going on?
I'm unresponsive on the bed. But I can't feel a pulse.
His name was Joel Peot. Female is his wife, Maria Munoz.
What'd you take?
I think Glenn has a pen. But she's been pretty depressed lately.
I hear the paramedics, the ambulance get to the scene. They had their lights and sirens. Paramedics continued CPR, and I see no changes in her body. She's not getting any better.
Yeah, under control.
No, man, she's not. No, she's been down for a while.
Yeah. The paramedics on scene determined that Maria was deceased at 1:50 a.m. This is 20, confirmed 82. What's going on? What happened? I started getting very suspicious about Joel. His pupils are just really big. I see that he's sweating profusely. Let's have a seat over here.
She's been super depressed. I've been ignoring her. We're going through some problems. And I came to talk to her, like we were just talking.
So you're not staying here right now?
I'm like, this doesn't make sense. If he doesn't live here, what is he doing here at 1 o'clock in the morning?
We had sex, we had to take a shower, then I thought she was like knocked out. I didn't think anything of it, so I just kept on doing my thing. And then I go back upstairs and then she just...
He starts crying, but it's a really fake cry. It didn't add up to me. I didn't like where it was going. Oh, it's 37. Yeah, it's really 37. I told him that this is very 37, which means suspicious in police jargon. And we gotta talk to you, okay? Come on, you gotta go outside.
So I arrived at the scene shortly after 2 a.m. Once I got the authorization and consent to go into the home, I did do a brief walkthrough. I see Maria, her body is there. Joel insinuated that she had overdosed on a bottle of pills, bottle of clonazepam. Whenever somebody takes a bottle of pills, they foam from the mouth. I noticed that Maria was not foaming from the mouth. When they did the examination of Maria's body, my partners discovered a track mark or like a puncture on her arm. It looked like she had just gone to get her blood drawn. And then they also discovered a bag of medical supplies. Inside that bag were needles, catheters, and 4 to 5 bottles of medications. I immediately suspected that there was more to this than what Joel was saying. We transported Joel to the police department. It was a voluntary interview. When I arrived at the station, I could hear him screaming. So much so that I had to tell the officer to tell him to calm down. When I entered the room, my interview at that point was that of a grieving spouse.
What's going on, man? She's been really depressed because so like we got separated.
Joel wanted to make it clear that Maria was depressed and was not taking the separation well.
So you said that Maria was taking pills for depression. Were they prescribed to her? Yeah, they were, and hers ran out. So mine were recently given to me. So I just went to give her some. You know the name of the drug? Yeah, 1 milligram clonazepam.
According to Joel, he had a prescription bottle for the same type of medication. So he allowed Maria to take some of his pills.
When I checked my pills, I saw 2 pills. You know, she took a walk.
You wanted me to think that Maria was so depressed that she had taken a bottle of clonazepam and that she committed suicide.
I saw a track mark on her. Okay. Did she inject herself with anything that you know of? Would she inject herself with anything? And if she did, what would it be? You know? Did you inject her tonight?
No.
With anything?
No.
By the end of that interview, I didn't suspect that Maria had taken any pills. When we looked at the needle puncture wound, the medical equipment at home, I suspected that Joel, with his knowledge of anesthesia, had killed his wife. So at the end of that interview, Joel was released. There was no evidence to charge him.
The next morning, my husband came to get me. He told me that the police had let him know that Maria was deceased. And I remember just screaming out, "Oh my God, he's killed her."
It really was like a ton of bricks. I immediately said he did it. Like, he did it. He actually did it.
When the police told me they were doing a suicide investigation, I told them that was impossible.
I knew that she would never do such a thing because she had plans for the future. She had plans for her life.
The key piece of evidence that was pending for us to rule out suicide, to rule out overdose, was a toxicology report.
As soon as we received that, we knew what caused her death.
The toxicology report routinely takes a few months. And in January 2021, we received the report.
The first thing we looked was to see how much clonazepam she had. And it was striking that she didn't have any clonazepam in her system.
1 milligram of clonazepam.
He said clonazepam, and she had none in her system. So then we reviewed the other drugs that were in her system. It was Versed, ketamine, and morphine. Propofol, Narcan, lidocaine, and Demerol.
So all these drugs, what they have in common is that they're normally used for anesthesia. I was familiar with propofol because that's known as what ultimately killed Michael Jackson.
Propofol takes effect immediately. The second it hits your bloodstream, you fall asleep. So it's impossible for you to self-administer propofol. Someone else has to administer propofol. So we knew it was not an overdose. We believed that we had the proof to show murder.
Laredo police, or we're gonna break down the door. Joel Peyote was arrested and charged with the murder officially on January 16th, 2021.
Joel Peyote's trial started March 20th of 2023. The defense argued that Maria was a drug abuser who committed suicide because she was so depressed, and that Joel gave Maria an injection in an attempt to revive her. Maria's journals were critical to the case, so we could refute that she was suicidal.
Today, my head will not look down. Today, I will conquer. Today, I am free. I am strong. I am confident. I am enough.
When I testified in court, I was able to read the journals to the jury and mention to the jury that suicide and depression had no bearing on this case whatsoever.
With all the accusations flying about suicide or trying to smear her, Maria was able to speak for herself. on how she felt, what she thought, and share the hope that she had.
I love my life. I love who I am becoming.
Joel couldn't steal her voice from her like he thought he had. And it was beautiful.
It was important to give as much background information as we could to explain Joel and Maria's relationship. The prosecution team brought in a video that Maria had recorded without Joel knowing.
You walk out that door, we're getting a divorce.
All right, fine. Got it.
We believed it was important to show that he's pretty cold about the pain that she's experiencing. We explained to the jury that on September 21st, 2020, Joel Peyote arrived to Maria's home with a bag of anesthetic drugs and IV equipment. He was wearing his scrubs because he had been at the hospital. So the evidence showed that she had high levels of caffeine in her system. We were able to describe to the jury that he probably showed up with a cup of coffee, and in that coffee, he likely included the oral anesthetic drugs, which is the ketamine, the Versed, and the morphine. And that would have incapacitated her. She would not have been able to resist him trying to put an IV on her to give her the additional drugs, lidocaine, propofol, Narcan, and Demerol. The levels of anesthetic drugs in her system were enough for 2 major surgeries. Joel knew that this was going to end her life.
Now we are here for Maria Munoz, who wrote, "No matter what happens, I will be fine. I will not put my head down.
I will hold it high. I am unique. No one is me, and that is my superpower. I am enough, and all I need. I will always push and thrive. I will shine bright like a diamond in the sky. The woman who never gave up. Maria."
Joel Peyote was found guilty of murder and of tampering with the evidence.
When Joel finally was convicted of murder, I was so relieved. I was grateful for Maria to get justice, but I was sad for her children.
I don't think that Joel has any real remorse for what he did. I think that he's a narcissist and a manipulator.
Being with Maria in Laredo was like having family there. She became like a sister to me. She always lifted my spirits, even when she was the one with tragedy in her life.
I think Joel sold her a life of dreams and promised her the world. Maria was special, and she deserved so much more.
Okay. Well, I'm not too sure, but oh, there you go. Mayra. Ha, hi. So I'm gonna do my hair for you guys to see.
Maria was like a ray of sunshine. She walked into a room and she lit everybody else up. I miss her laugh. I miss watching her run after her kids. I miss seeing her chase them and the joy that she had. We need more joy like that in this world. She was very happy on her wedding day, ready to start a life with him.
She did not expect something so tragic would happen to her marriage.
911, where's your emergency? Oh, God, you gotta get someone over here.
Me and my wife got in a terrible argument. I just shot her, and I swear to God, I didn't mean to shoot that.
Hello? Hey, man, my wife just tried to kill me.
He was charming, but he was also terrifying to anyone that knew him.
It's a level of evil that most people never see in their lifetime.
He was losing control.
He went full psycho.
The scene itself just looked like a nightmare.
It wasn't human.
She wasn't his wife. She was a possession.
If the ambulance gets here quick, she might be saved.
This was so cruel. This was evil.
Sau đây mình xin gửi đến các bạn bài hát nữa của ca sĩ Thanh Lam, bài hát Khoảnh Khắc, được phát hành vào năm 2000 trong album Khát vọng ca sĩ Thanh Lam. Chỉ còn một chiếc lá cuối thu mong manh, chỉ còn một mình em xót xa chờ anh. Chỉ còn đêm nay mai lá kia rơi, chỉ còn đêm nay mai lá kia rơi. Khi mùa thu khuất nơi cuối trời, giọt nước mắt khô không lời. Và rồi mùa thu qua trống tênh buồn vui, vui lòng mình băng giá tháng năm lặng trôi. Chỉ còn đêm nay hay đến bên em, chỉ còn đêm nay hay đến bên em. Nếu ngày mai bước chân anh về, một xác lá rơi bên hè, mùa đông tái tê. Người về đây với em, về bên em, về đây với căn nhà xưa em đem vòng tay và làn môi ấm ngày tháng chờ mong. Người về đây với em, người yêu ơi, thời xưa hãy trao lời cuối trong đời. Mùa đông đến bên hiên rồi, về đây với em. Chỉ có một chiếc lá cuối thu mong manh, chỉ còn một mình em xót xa chờ anh. Chỉ còn đêm nay mai lá kia rơi, chỉ còn đêm nay mai lá kia rơi. Khi mùa thu khuất nơi cuối trời, giọt nước mắt khô không lời. Và rồi mùa thu qua trống tanh buồn vui, vui lòng mình băng giá tháng năm lặng trôi. Chỉ còn đêm nay hay đến bên em, chỉ còn đêm nay hay đến bên em. Nếu ngày mai bước chân anh về, một xác lá rơi bên hè, mùa đông tái tê. Người về đây với em, về bên em, về đây với căn nhà xưa em đêm vòng tay và làn môi ấm ngày tháng chờ mong. Người về đây với em, người yêu ơi, thời xưa hãy cho lời cuối trong đời. Mùa đông đến bên hiên rồi, về đây với em.
It's a little embarrassing telling this story, but I had discovered as a 13-year-old kid how to masturbate in the tub one day. Thought it was the greatest thing. Had no clue. Was so excited. I was like, oh, I should tell my friends. And I was so innocent, I didn't have a clue. I remember shortly after learning from my bishop how wrong they said masturbation was and everything. You're just this innocent child, and the next thing you know, they're teaching you that if you look at something and you have a feeling, that's the same as committing adultery, and committing adultery is the next sin to murder. I started to feel like that I had committed the sin next to murder, and I felt like it was all my fault.
This is a story about fractured faith. Mormon families in southern Utah are flocking to a high-profile therapist.
People don't understand that they could actually heal their pain.
She made it look like only the best of the best got to have her therapy.
With an unconventional approach to healing.
There wasn't any aspect of the human condition that she couldn't pathologize and turn it into an addiction.
Someone could be addicted to having sex with a lamppost.
Like, what the heck is going on here?
When a high-profile vlogger enters the picture.
How do you mother 6 children? Well, Ruby Frankie will show you how.
If you cut one more thing in my house, I'm gonna cut its head off.
An unexpected alliance takes shape.
There was financial attraction, there was emotional attraction. She was sleeping literally in the same bed as her client.
And a call to 911.
This boy has he's been detained.
Unravels their bizarre beliefs.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil.
What the heck is going on in the LDS faith?
Everything you're sharing to me just sounds like a horror movie.
I don't tell people this much. Bella's actually my service animal. She's trained, so if I ever have PTSD, she comes and just like hits me with her nose. She's so good at it. She reads your eyes if they like dilate. My name is Adam Paul Steed. I was raised in the heart of the Mormon Church. I was taught to pray every single day that I would get married in the temple and then I would go on a mission.
My name's Paul Steed. This is my 1946 Willys Jeep. I had one of these in high school, and for 40 years I've tried to get another one. And Adam found this one, called me up, and he said, "Dad, I found your Jeep. All my kids, I want them to get baptized, and I want them to be Boy Scouts, and then I want them to go on missions." Everybody wants to say, what was the one reason why you left the Mormon Church? But people like us don't leave for one reason.
I had a good childhood. I just had people that tried to repaint it. There's this camp called Camp Little Lemhi. It's kind of the Idaho-Wyoming border area. And I hate that place. Like now, it's just, everything good about it's gone. It's a terrible place for me.
The Boy Scouts of America is inextricably woven into the Mormon male experience. As early as 1913, the LDS Church outsourced its boys and young men's program to the Boy Scouts of America until 2020. When Adam was growing up, to be a Mormon boy was to be a Boy Scout. But for Adam, the Scouts would have a major impact on his life, and not in a good way.
I came home from camp after getting sexually molested multiple times by a serial sexual predator. He was the second in charge of Camp Little Lemhi. I was like 14 and he was like 25 or 24.
At first, Adam hides his abuse, but when he learns that this is happening to other Scouts, he does what he should have done. He brings it to the attention of the adults in charge of the camp, and nobody did anything. And so Adam took it upon himself to call the police, and his Boy Scout leader did get arrested. But after years of lingering frustration with the Boy Scouts hierarchy and the reporting process, Adam takes it one step further.
When I was 23, I decided to sue Boy Scouts of America, and eventually we had a settlement. I'm at BYU. I met this girl. She was cute and she had this cool voice and she always presented herself very, very, very well. We fell in love and suddenly she was just like, I feel like you're the right person to marry. I wanted to marry her. I just felt like nobody would give me a clean slate and look at me like a normal person.
The thing about his wife is that Adam is embarrassing to her and her family. They're high up in the church. And back then, if you attacked the Boy Scouts of America, it was like attacking the Mormon church. They were concerned about the optics of this new union.
It was generated that my wife and I needed to go to therapy with the scouting settlement money. It would be immoral if we didn't take therapy, because then it's like we're stealing money that should be for that. So the bishop calls us in and tells us, I want you to go to a very special counselor. Her name's Jody Hildebrandt.
I am sure you're here because you have a desire to heal, a desire to have joy in your life and connection in your relationships.
Jody Hildebrandt is a superstar therapist in the Mormon community in southern Utah. Her organization, Connections, comes highly recommended by the hierarchy of the Latter-day Saints Church. It seems like a good match, but Jody's approach to therapy would have an unexpected impact on Adam's life.
My name is Lauren Mathias, and I am the co-host of the Hidden True Crime podcast. I've reported all throughout Idaho and Utah, and I can tell you that the secrecy and what is hidden in southern Utah blew my mind. Jody Hildebrandt was born to a very large LDS family. Her childhood was tough living. Put your shoulder to the wheel and make it your own way. You're a Hildebrandt.
I remember as a teenager and young adult feeling so overwhelmed with pain.
Her father was a colonel in the Air Force. Her mother was very distant. According to her, she was sexually abused by relatives on multiple occasions.
At the same time, she becomes a beauty queen. She's performing and she's singing and she has this beautiful voice. And so, I don't know, sort of some contradictions that I'm seeing.
She got married, had a couple kids, and about the same time her marriage explodes, she goes to graduate school at the University of Utah to study educational psychology.
I encountered Jody Hildebrandt at several trainings. She was working as a social worker. Jody was very attention-seeking, a little bit of challenging the presenter, which kind of sends the message that the real expert would be Jody.
She went to work for LDS Family Services, which was the Mormon Church's official therapist group.
LDS Family Services is supposed to be a safe list. So somebody goes to their bishop and says, I need a referral. They're supposed to suggest a therapist that is officially on this list.
She made tons of jokes. She pointed out funny things about the way guys see the world and women see the world and had everybody laughing. And she made it look and feel like only the best of the best got to have her therapy.
In the Book of Mormon, it's taught that sexual transgression is next to murder in severity. Masturbating and looking at porn is probably one of the most serious and even spiritually deadly things you can do. That's the context that many of these Mormon therapists arise from. And so Jody Hildebrandt definitely comes out of that mold. A network of Mormon therapists committed to, curing the world of masturbating, men.
These are all been packaged with vacuum bags. So this is calories for 5 people for 2 years, roughly. Food storage is something that people do in the LDS religion. I don't go to church anymore, but I still have the food storage. And I still believe in it. My name is Daniel Choate. I've lived in Utah my whole life. I was married for 15 years. I have 5 kids between the ages of 17 and 7. To put it bluntly, as is common with the male kind, I would look at some porn occasionally. And I was very honest with my wife about it, and it really began to bother her a lot. She said there's no difference between that and having an actual affair. I did not feel like that. I thought that I could go to Jody to help us navigate this road that we're both trying to go down together. She put us right into her groups, and there was a men's group and a women's group. We had a Zoom meeting once a week on a Saturday, and Jody would head that meeting. Really, everybody was there for the same thing. It was all porn.
It was all about me having a sex addiction. I couldn't figure it out because I hadn't masturbated or looked at pornography. Didn't do any of this stuff.
She conceptualized all of her clients as addicts. If you masturbate, you're a sex addict. But if you have a bad temper, you're addicted to drama. There wasn't any aspect of the human condition that she couldn't pathologize.
She said that if you did something one time a year, the fact that you couldn't not do it one time a year meant you were an addict. She even joked around and laughed about how someone could be addicted to having sex with a lamppost.
People would describe themselves as addicts. I masturbated once last month. I'm 28 days sober.
One of her core beliefs is that we're born with an addiction mindset. If we're all sinners, then the solution is to find what she calls truth. So the goal is moral perfection. The way you find moral perfection is through Jody Hildebrandt and her system.
You would then go to these accountability groups. They were often run over Zoom, and people would report to these groups like Alcoholics Anonymous.
We had to make 7 phone calls per week to other men that were in the men's group. You would call somebody, they would tell you about what's going on in their life, and you would do the same. And we were encouraged to share, as openly as possible.
So it would be like, hey, Jim, thanks for being my accountability buddy. I didn't masturbate this morning. And Jim would be like, oh, great, good job, keep it going. But then on the 5th day, if you did masturbate, your job was to say, hey, Jim, I slipped up. And then in the next group, if you didn't report your slip up, Jim would make sure you did. Jody would have the group serve as a form of punishment for falling off the wagon.
One day, I come home, and there's a note on the bedroom door. It's like a full page of rules and things that my wife has made for me. I'm only allowed in our bedroom under her rules. And she had times that I could enter in the morning and times that I could enter in the evening. If I didn't abide by these rules, she let me know that she was going to take the kids and leave.
So why are these women going along with this? I'll tell you what I think. Jody is giving them control. She is rejecting 200 years of the church's patriarchal history. She's empowering these women to examine their marriages and make demands. She's embracing these women's feelings, and she's controlling the weakest part of the men's psyche.
After about a week of appeasing her, I rebelled, and I went to sleep in the bed one night. So she said, hey, you have to get out of the house, or I'm leaving. I reasoned with her, okay, I'll go to the guest house. And she accepted that at the time.
Why would you split a couple that you wanted to help? Because you're getting information from them and you're using it against each other. They have no idea what the other one was saying. They're just trusting Jody.
I would say the majority of men were like fairly under Jody's spell, that they were evil and they needed to change and fix everything. I remember making phone calls with guys from the guest house and coming to understand that almost everybody's separated. What the heck is going on here?
Look, here was a little note from my ex. I love you. I'll stop focusing on myself so much. It doesn't represent how I truly feel about you. I love you, I love you, I love you. This was our life before Jody Hildebrandt. My wife wanted Jody's approval of everything she did. She lost the ability to know for herself if something was right. What Jody wanted was like a drug for her.
These are emails between Jody and Adam's ex-wife. Dear Jody, our conversation this morning reminded me of the scripture when Jesus said, my sheep hear my voice. I wanted to express my gratitude to you for being his voice in my life. In other words, Jody represents God.
When I read the emails between Jody and my ex now, it sounded like they were talking about like a sexual arousal kind of experience. My ex starts talking to Jody about feeling blood in her, like in her cheeks, and this euphoric feeling, and it feels so good. My wife asked me to bathe our daughter, and this was at a point where Jody had taken away from us the ability to kiss, the ability to be physical, the ability to have sex, the ability to talk to each other. And she's very disciplined on this. You could imagine my shock. I'm in the bathtub with our little baby, and my wife walks into the bathroom in lingerie and acted really sexy, and it started to give me an erection, so I was laughing with her, and I asked her to take the baby out of the tub. So she took the baby out, presumably to come back and hop in the bath to have sex with me. And I was thinking that she was like becoming her old funny self again. Then she just looked at my private parts, disgusted, and just walked off. I always thought that I must have said something wrong that spooked her. You know, I didn't put it together. I didn't realize what happened.
There's so much deception going on that the law, quote unquote, they don't know where the truth is. This little boy that you have depends on you, Mom. And I'm hoping that you will be a lioness to protect him.
Adam's wife files for divorce, which is probably no surprise to Adam. But what is a huge surprise is that it is soon followed by an order of protection. And Adam is wondering, what has he done that caused his wife to believe she needs the law to help protect her from him?
She took the kids and disappeared, and I had no clue where they were. When the protective order came out, she said, my husband is a victim of sexual abuse, and so he doesn't understand healthy boundaries. He had to call me to get the baby out of the tub because he was having an erection. My biggest fear as a victim of sexual abuse was to be accused of being a sexual abuser. I had horrible trauma when I was a kid. And suddenly I'm being accused of stuff that makes it look like I should be in prison. I would put a bullet to my head before I'd touch a kid.
In the final divorce settlement, Adam lost custody of his children. He was granted 10 days of visitation a month. Now, upon reflection, Adam believes that the entire bathroom incident was a trap orchestrated by his ex-wife and Jody Hildebrandt to make him look like an unfit father. And Adam is not the only victim.
We're introduced to Jody in 2018. We got divorced in 2020. I thought, you know what would be excellent is if we can get a divorce, have a good co-parenting relationship, and maybe even be friends. Well, my ex-wife texted my sister-in-law. She claimed that I had done something like rape to her, which, as far as I'm concerned, that's an allegation of rape. She claimed that I had cheated on her in the marriage, which was not true. She also claimed that I had made some kind of sexual comments about our daughter. I would never hurt my daughter.
So what's going on here? If her aim is to free the women from the confines of a traditional marriage, then that puts her outside the bounds of Mormon teachings. While she may be challenging the teachings of the church, there seems to be something else that is driving the actions of Jody Hildebrandt.
Money is not a bad thing at all. It's a wonderful thing. And if you are able to make money and you do it in truth, God bless you.
Jody capitalized on Mormon sexual shame to the tune of millions of dollars. How many therapists do you know who live in $3 to $5 million homes, especially in Utah? It's unheard of. Jody's sales pitch is, I'm the one who's figured out how to cure the porn and masturbation problem. Start with individual therapy sessions with me. Soon she'll upsell to it being couples therapy. And then soon she'll upsell her support groups. If you can help 8 or 10 or 20 people at one time, you're going to make a lot more money than if you're meeting people individually.
She's making money by selling workbooks and homework materials. She probably made money from merchandise. I know everyone seems to have a Connections t-shirt or hat.
Jody would pressure parents to go to the grandparents and have them liquidate their 401ks because you'd say, listen, you can have your spouse or your kids committing this next to murder, or you can cough up 5 or 10 or 20 grand to save their children or their grandchildren from eternal damnation.
She knew we had just got a settlement from scouting, and she was just raking in that money. She was saying, you have to take more sessions with me. Instead of twice a week, it has to be 4 times a week. We were paying 2.5 times more for Jody than we were paying for all of our living expenses.
Let's just call it what it is. It's a faith-based, multi-level marketing scheme run by a controlling and charismatic figure.
Get in the classroom, start meeting other people that are part of the Connections family, start talking to them on the phone, talking to them on social media, and get the help that you need.
And for organizations like this to thrive, they need to find new members and keep growing.
So you're all like, what? I have your attention now? Is that it? You're all gonna listen?
Ruby Franke was this powerful mom influencer and had millions and millions of followers on YouTube.
Let me tell you about Ruby Franke. Ruby was raised a devout Mormon in Utah. She was a high achiever who strove to be the ideal Mormon mother. Ruby met her husband, Kevin, when she was just 18. They were engaged within weeks. She had her first child at 21 and then went on to have 5 more.
She started a Mormon Mommy YouTube channel where she would share with the world her adventures as a parent. It's named 8 Passengers because it's her and her husband, Kevin, and then their 6 children. In Mormon culture, women are often secondary, and there are many, many Mormon housewives that feel underappreciated, and it was a way for her to be the perfect Mormon mom.
8 Passengers followed their entire family on daily vlogs. How do you mother 6 children? Well, Ruby Franke will show you how.
One of the most concerning things that I see with this growing trend of family vloggers is that, like reality TV, you need drama to attract viewers. And more often than not, that drama will include the children.
If you cut one more thing in my house, I'm going to take the scissors, look at me, and I'm going to cut its head off.
She started focusing on disciplining her children in more and more extreme ways. One of the things Ruby was criticized for was for kicking her son Chad out of his own bedroom and forcing him to sleep on a beanbag.
That was 7 months ago. Maybe you need longer without a bedroom.
You see a trend of a child getting hurt or discipline that is actually quite shocking.
Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did. Hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch.
The Mormon community in southern Utah is pretty tight-knit. So it's not surprising that in 2018, the paths of these 2 powerful women cross.
Jody Hildebrandt's eyes, it was like a cartoon, and the stars in her eyes probably just lit up the moment she learned Ruby Franke might be attending her sessions. I certainly think that she targeted her.
Phone call yesterday with my therapist, and she taught me about truth and distortion. Mom probably talks about Jody all the time.
I've mentioned Jody a few times. She has a podcast called Connections with an X.
Ruby and Jody met because Ruby and Kevin were actually seeking therapy for their oldest son. Jody Hildebrandt was recommended.
As soon as Jody Hildebrandt discovers that she's working with a family that has 2 million subscribers, I am sure she sees dollar signs and she sees opportunity.
It seemed to transition to Ruby getting therapy.
Jody always had a larger interest in communicating with the parents more than with the actual patient. Her theory was, if you want to help your child, you have to help yourself first.
At first, Kevin was part of this therapy, like, let's do couple therapy, and then all of a sudden it seemed to transition to Ruby becoming kind of a mini Jody, the Robin to Jody's Batman.
We've seen this dynamic before, where Jody causes and then exploits friction in a marriage and then forges a bond with the wife. But in the case of Ruby Franke, the dynamic is different because Jody Hildebrandt is now dealing with someone whose star power is much bigger than her own.
Ruby Franke emerges back online, no longer with her husband, but with Jody Hildebrandt, her therapist, with a channel called Moms of Truth.
You will no longer be manipulated or deceived by yourself or by others. Right.
Ruby becomes then not just a patient of Jody's, but a mental fitness trainer under Jody. And it's absolutely bizarre.
You're gonna go, oh yeah, I do that. Or you're gonna say, oh, my spouse does that.
That's what you're gonna say.
So in 2021, Jody actually moves in with Ruby and Kevin Franke.
The moment she showed up at my house, just the weirdest crap started happening. Lights turning on and off, like sounds like footprints going up walls and across the ceiling, and like
Jody starts saying some shadowy figures are visiting her at night or after her. Jody then starts asking Kevin Franke to help her perform exorcisms.
it was weird, and I hated it. And I don't have any way to explain it other than there's some crazy going on.
It's hard to make sense of these seemingly supernatural occurrences. Does Jody truly believe she's being pursued by demons? Or is this another performance where she's manipulating her environment to get the attention that she craves?
Ruby would go up and check on her. It started like every 4 hours at night, and it moved to every hour at night. And then at some point, Ruby said, you know what, I'm just going to start sleeping in there. That's kind of weird, but okay. And that was that. They started sleeping in the same bed.
Sorry, I was just enjoying that.
And Jody, take over. She's mesmerized by what I'm saying.
There was financial attraction, there was emotional attraction, there was psychological attraction. She was sleeping literally in the same bed as her client. Was Jody literally fighting with her own demons and preaching against sexual misconduct and yet being constantly tormented as a closeted lesbian? Now, I'm speculating there, but all those dots seem to line up.
Now, look, whether they're in a sexual relationship or not, what is clear is that these two powerful women are feeding off each other's energy. Eventually, Ruby and her younger children leave their family home and move in with Jody.
Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he said he had just came from a neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's hungry, and he's thirsty. And he asked us to call the police. So he's very afraid. He has duct tape around each ankle. And he has them around his wrists as well. Okay, this boy has been... He's been detained. What's your mom's name? Ruby Franke. Ruby Franke is his mom's name. He says what's happened to him is his fault.
They're coming to you as quick as they can, okay?
Okay. Jody Hildebrandt is up there right now.
Okay.
She's a bad lady. We didn't realize how bad.
When I arrived at the residence where the young boy was located, I noticed how bad this boy was emaciated. His skin was coming off. I was tearing up. It hurt to see a young boy with wounds like that done to him. Like he was looking at me like he was in trouble.
How did you get the ropes on you? Who did them?
He told me that his mother and Jody Hildebrandt did this to him. I just couldn't imagine what he could have done for this to happen to him.
Police officers, open up! Jody, I need you to step out.
I have my attorney.
That's great. Step out of the house.
No, I'm not going to step out of the
Step
house.
out of the house.
Step out of the house.
We're just going to see if anybody else. Is there anybody else home?
Wait a minute, how do you come to my house?
Right there.
At the home, I let Jody know that she was being detained, and I didn't have any real communication with her until we arrived at the police department and I conducted an interview. If we ask you any questions that you don't want to answer, you can just tell us, I don't want to answer that question.
So I trust my attorney. He said, don't say anything. And I said, I have nothing to hide. And he's like, I know that. I don't know what's going to happen with what I say. You know, I'm a psychologist. I've watched people flip things all the time. If you knew all the pieces, I think you'd have a lot of empathy for what's going on.
I was in bed at 4 a.m. I just woke up randomly. I checked the news. I read about Ruby Franke and the child abuse and the family blogger and a therapist. And then when I saw it was Jody, I almost fell out of bed. I had avoided talking about this whole part of my life like the plague. My story's always been here. We've always had the evidence. Nobody's had the energy to find the truth.
What would you say to Jody?
Burn in hell.
We're just here to talk to you about kind of a few things involving your kids. So first, do you live down here, or? I was just trying to build a rapport, get to know her, and she just stared and was giving these long blinks like she was in a trance. It was very different, odd, not normal behavior. Would you feel more comfortable talking to one of us?
Or do you want me to step out if you want?
Or if you feel more comfortable talking to him, I can step out.
I'll wait till I have a lawyer.
That's where the interview ended. Kevin Franke arrived at the Santa Clara Evans Police Department looking for his children.
A 12 to 13-year-old boy was knocking on doors in a neighborhood asking for food and water, that he was severely emaciated, that he had...
What is emaciated?
Skinny, scrawny, malnutritioned, not enough food, not enough water to sustain life. So he had...
I'm sorry, what?
He didn't have knowledge of the state that they were currently in. He had not seen his kids in over a year.
I've been in a separation.
From who?
From my wife and family because of my own addictions with pornography. Jody saw the need for me to get help. Frankly, I agree. This space has been exactly what I need.
I feel bad for Kevin. He's not going to talk like this in 5 years from now. He's just fresh in it, fresh in the cult.
Everything you're sharing to me just sounds like a made-up story. It sounds like a horror movie.
We conducted the search of the over 9,000 square foot home. At that time, we didn't know the extent of the child abuse, but then once we searched the home, we found journals written by Ruby Franke.
So this Ruby's diary, July 11, 2023, long before she's arrested. Big day for evil. R, or I should say his demon, stays in the shade. I push R into the sun. I come back with a cactus poker. When I poke his back to get his attention, R doesn't even flinch. He's in a trance and doesn't appear to feel anything.
The children were told that they were disobedient and they had to withstand different punishments, running hills in the middle of the desert, fasting for 3 days, no food, no water. All these things were part of the repentance process, which was supposed to get the devil outside of them.
This is good evidence. She knows her kids are being abused, and she thinks that the kids are like demons, or they don't know how much God loves them. That's love? This is crazy.
This is a free call from Ruby Franke, an inmate at Purgatory Correctional Facility.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it. The most upsetting thing is that I am completely misunderstood. Like, my own family misunderstands me, they misinterpret me, and poor Jody. She puts her neck out on the line for people and then they get mad at her. I mean, it is just horrendous.
I cannot even wrap my head around what Ruby is saying. She has been arrested. She knows the condition of her abused children, and she is still defending Jody? This is a massive transformation from mommy vlogger to starry-eyed cult follower. So what really happened here?
We didn't do that. We didn't do that. Those pictures we did not do. He did that to himself, yes. Did we put that on him and then he rubbed around and cut himself? Yes. But we didn't do that. I'm a good woman. I don't do naughty things. I'm a really good girl.
This has been the strangest and the most miraculous intervention. It put everybody where they needed to be. It separated me from Jody, so I'm not hearing her. And I think just not hearing her has cleared a lot of things up for me.
Now look, perhaps it was the gravity of the charges and the potential sentence she faced, but after months in jail, Ruby Franke had the presence of mind to step back and see through the fog of her twisted alliance with Jody Hildebrand.
I think Ruby really wanted to be loved in a way that she had not experienced before. I think Jody sensed that, and Jody played on it. There were a couple pages in the journal where she talked about possession. It really showed me the extent to which Ruby was all in with Jody's beliefs.
Well, how come you get to say where the boundaries are? And I always say back to people, I don't say where the boundaries are. They're God's rules.
It was always about distortion versus truth. But really, when it comes down to it, truth is anything Jody says. So, in other words, a cult leader.
Like all cult leaders, whether it's L. Ron Hubbard or Keith Raniere or Jody Hildebrand, they always mix in sort of pop psychology, New Age doctrine or theology with some of their own particular practices.
When I hear that she thinks God is speaking through her, I think, what a narcissist. My next thought was, what the heck is going on in the LDS faith with all these extreme beliefs? I'm covering the Chad and Lori Daybell case, and the exact same thing is happening.
Chad and Lori Daybell are a couple that led a doomsday cult based on fringe LDS beliefs. Now, they believe that Lori's two children were possessed by demons, and they had them killed. The Daybells isolated themselves from anyone who challenged them. Ruby and Jody seem to be doing the same thing. Weeks before they were arrested, they were shopping for remote ranch land in Arizona.
I firmly believe that those kids would have met a tragic end if Jody had been allowed to take them to Arizona. Mormonism at its best is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So somebody that comes along and distorts Mormon doctrine and theology and then monetizes it, and then in doing so, when they're supposed to be a healer, they're predatory and destroying lives and families. It's an evil, corrupt grift. And Jody Hildebrand was one of the worst grifters Utah's ever seen.
This is a call from
Jody Hildebrand. The Lord says, "And ye shall be betrayed by brethren and kinsfolk and friends. Children shall rise up against their parents and shall cause them to be put to death." That statement right there is what's going on with me.
It's hard to know if Jody's religious thinking changed, but in the court setting, she did change. Ruby and Jody each pled guilty, and the plea deal was to drop 2 of the 6 aggravated child abuse charges. They're each going to do at least 4 years, because that's the minimum sentence they were given. Jody's brand of perverted Mormonism was a dangerous mix. This greed-fueled exploitation of religious doctrine, this deep-seated drive to punish men and children, and this promise of spiritual salvation. It is hard to fathom the damage she has done.
She took away 15 years of our life. We're just one little story in her massive wake of destruction.
How's Adam today?
Adam's good. Ever since he came home from scout camp in '97, His life has been in turmoil. And he gets up every day, and bless his heart, he's one of the most optimistic people I know.
I've had my life turned upside down and turned back over in an extraordinary way. A couple of years ago, this beautiful woman came into my life. We had a baby a few months after we got married. I always wanted to have a baby out of wedlock, but I missed it by just a few months. I just love her, and I got this gorgeous second chance at life.
If Jody Hildebrand were to see this, what would you say to her?
I'd probably say, you gone done up, Jody. You know, may God have mercy on your soul when you finally take responsibility for what you've done.
How deep has the covenant cut in your hearts?
She convinces people to do whatever she wants because she's the prophet.
And she said, if we save these cats today, we will be saved in the day of the apocalypse.
Desperate people do desperate things.